morning and a very warm welcome. This is the Breakfast Rundown on TV1. I'm Therunee Karunaratne. We're coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Today is the second day of President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka's official visit to the United Arab Emirates. The visit is set to conclude on the 13th of February. We have details on what the president's program was yesterday and what can be expected throughout the visit as well. The executive director of the IMF has met with Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amrasuriya, and we have details on what exactly was discussed during this meeting. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Electricity Board has said that the Norotcholip coal power plant can be restored back to normalcy by Thursday. However, the scheduled 1.5-hour power cuts will be carried out today as well. These are just a few of the local news items that we are ready to cover on the Breakfast Rundown this morning. News overseas is the very latest concerning the Israel-Hamas hostage release deal. Hamas says that the group is postponing the next scheduled release of Israeli hostages. Also, our second international news item is a follow-up on one that we covered yesterday. The United States raising tariffs on steel as well as aluminium imports. Stay tuned with us. We have all the news in detail. Let's move on to the top local news item first. Today marks day 2 of President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka's official visit to the United Arab Emirates. He undertook this visit upon the invitation of President of the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka and his delegation arrived at the Dubai International Airport last evening. Upon arrival, the President and his team were warmly welcomed by Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al Zayudi, the UAE Minister of State for Foreign Trade, along with other state representatives. President Dissanayaka met with Sheikh Abdullah bin Mohammed Al Qasimi, the chairman of the Master Investment Group and the Rural's representative for Ras Al Khaimah. During the meeting, discussions were focused on strengthening economic and investment cooperation between Sri Lanka and the UAE. Following the discussion, the President attended the Time 100 Gala dinner at the renowned Museum of the Future in Dubai. During his visit, President Dissanayaka is scheduled to address the 2025 World Government Summit in Dubai. The summit will see the participation from over 4,000 delegates representing 150 countries. The summit aims to bring together world leaders to discuss various topics including futuristic approaches, technological innovation as well as global dialogue. President Dissanayaka will also hold bilateral discussions with several heads of state attending this summit. A key aspect of the President's visit will be meetings with CEOs of leading global companies in sectors such as information technology, artificial intelligence, energy, tourism, finance as well as media. These discussions aim to attract new investment opportunities to Sri Lanka. Now, President Dissanayaka is also scheduled to meet with the UAE President, Vice President as well as Prime Minister. He is accompanied by Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism, Vijay Herath. The President is expected to return to Sri Lanka on the 13th of February. Let's move on to more local news now. Executive Director of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, Dr. Krishnamurthy Subramanian, paid a courtesy visit to the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Dr. Harini Amrasuriya, at the Prime Minister's office. The meeting focused on key economic matters, including Sri Lanka's tax policy, the effective management of tax revenue, and measures to enhance public sector efficiency. The Prime Minister also highlighted the government's future development agenda, emphasizing policy initiatives to ensure economic stability and foster sustainable growth. Alternate Executive Director of the IMF, Dr. P.K.G. Harishchandra, also participated in the discussions. The Sri Lankan delegation included Secretary to the Prime Minister, Pradeep Saputantri, Additional Secretary to the Prime Minister, Sagarika Bogahavatta, Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. P. Nandalal Veerasinghe, Assistant Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. C. Amarasekara, Additional Director of Economic Research, Dr. Lasitha R.C. Patberia, Senior Economist and Liaison Officer for the IMF Executive Director Amila J. Vijayawardena, Director Economic Affairs Division at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Lashinka Damulage, and Director General of the Department of External Resources, Samantha Bandara. On to more local news now. The Food Policy and Security Committee convened under the leadership of Minister of Trade, Commerce and Food Security, Vasantha Samarasinghe. The meeting took place at the Presidential Secretariat. During the meeting, the importance of a strong data system to make policy decisions related to food security was strongly emphasized. Minister Vasantha Samarasinghe pointed out that accurate data and information are crucial factors when making decisions related to food security, and the government is not willing to take the risk of making decisions without such data. As a result, discussions were held on prioritizing the development of a proper data and information system. Additionally, the committee focused on ensuring the uninterrupted supply of essential food items and maintaining price control during the upcoming Sinhala and Tamil New Year season. The purchase of paddy was also subject to in-depth discussion during this meeting. The committee discussed expanding the networks of cooperative as well as Lanka Satasa outlets throughout the country to provide essential goods to consumers at affordable prices. Minister Samarasinghe gave instructions to committee members to take necessary steps to prevent food wastage as well. Meanwhile, Minister of Health and Mass Media Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa says that work is being systematically carried out to improve the country's secondary and tertiary hospital system. The minister visited the Agalavatta Pimbura Hospital, where he was also born, to observe the patient treatment services. Afterwards, he held a discussion with hospital officials. Minister Jayatissa said that the government holds a primary responsibility of ensuring a good health service for all citizens of Sri Lanka. He said that there are about 50 hospitals under the secondary hospital system of our country and about 80 tertiary hospitals, which amounts to 130 hospitals. The Minister of Health also acknowledged that the shortage of specialist doctors, hospital staff as well as resources has hampered the efficiency of the hospital system in our country. On to the very latest update concerning the recent nationwide power outage. The Ceylon Electricity Board says that the Norochole coal power plant can be restored to normalcy by Thursday. Its spokesperson, Dhammika Wimalaratne, said that power supply in the national grid will not need to be managed thereafter. Meanwhile, the CEB has also decided to manage the electricity demand today as well by dividing the country into 4 zones, just like it did yesterday, following the unexpected nationwide power outage on Sunday, which resulted in the deactivation of all 3 generators at the Norochole Lakvijaya coal power plant. This measure was taken to manage the power supply in the national grid. Planned power management will be carried out from 3:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. today. Accordingly, each zone will experience a power cut of 1.5 hours. The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka has also approved the CEB's request for this power management plan. The power cut schedule will be as follows. The zones A, B, C and D will experience power cuts from 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. The zones E, F, G, H, U and B will experience power cuts from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The zones I, J, K, L, P and Q will experience power cuts from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And the zones R, S, T and W will experience power cuts from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. But of course, for the complete information on this story, you can visit our website, which is www.newsfirst.lk. One of Sri Lanka's most colourful and prestigious Buddhist cultural processions, the Navam Mahaperahara, organised by the Hunupitiya Gangarame Temple, is set to parade the streets today and tomorrow. This marks the 46th edition of the event. The procession is being carried out under the guidance of Venerable Dr. Kirinde Assaji Nayaka Thera, the chief incumbent of the Gangarame Temple. The procession is scheduled to begin at 7 p.m. Additionally, due to the Navam Mahaperahara, a special traffic plan will be in place around the Gangarame Temple in Colombo. The Police Media Division has announced that certain roads in Colombo, including Ramanayaka Mavatha, Hunupitiya Baba Junction, Dharmapala Mavatha, Park Street Junction, Colvinar de Silva Mavatha in Union Place, as well as the Hyde Park Corner Junction, will be temporarily closed during the time of the procession. On to more local news. Police say that the man who was killed in a shooting last night on Benedict Road in Kotahena is an associate of a drug dealer referred to as Pukudu Kanna. A senior police officer said that information has been received that the shooting was carried out by the gang associated with a woman known as Kudu Selvi. Two individuals who arrived on a motorcycle had used a T-56 assault rifle to carry out this shooting on a man who was standing near a three-wheeler. He later succumbed to his injuries after he was admitted to the hospital. The deceased was identified as a resident of Jampata Street in Colombo 13. Police media spokesperson, Senior Superintendent of Police Buddhika Manatunga, said that 4 police teams, including the Colombo Crimes Division, have been deployed to investigate the shooting. This incident was captured on a security camera at a nearby store as well. Let's move on to a weather update for this morning. The Met Department says that mainly fair weather will prevail over most parts of the island. There is a possibility of ground frost at some places in the Nuwara Eliya district during the early hours of the morning. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces and in the Gaul, Mathura, Badulla and Kurunegala districts during the morning. On to the marine weather update now. Mainly fair weather will prevail over sea areas around the island. The sea areas of the coasts extending from Colombo to Mannar via Putlam and from Mathura to Pothubil via Hambantota will be fairly rough at times. Shifting your attention to news overseas, our first international news item concerns the Israel-Hamas hostage release deal. A spokesperson for the armed wing of Hamas says that the group is postponing the next scheduled release of Israeli hostages, blaming what he said were Israeli violations of the ceasefire deal that was reached. 3 hostages held in Gaza are due to be freed on Saturday in exchange for more Palestinian prisoners held in Israel. Abu Ubaidah said the releases would not go ahead until Israel complied with its obligations. He said violations included delaying the return of displaced Palestinians to the north, firing on people and failing to allow into Gaza humanitarian aid in all its agreed upon forms. Israel's defense minister called the announcement a complete violation of the ceasefire agreement. Now, Defense Minister of Israel, Israel Katz, said he had ordered the Israeli Defense Forces, or the IDF, to prepare at the highest level of alert for any possible scenario in Gaza and to protect the communities. He said, quote, "We will not allow a return to the reality of the 7th of October 2023 when Hamas attacked Israel, triggering the war," unquote. Hamas's announcement came shortly before people gathered in Tel Aviv to mark the 24th birthday of Israeli hostage Alan Ohel, his second in captivity. He was taken hostage from the Nova Festival on the 7th of October 2023. Moving on to our second international news item, allow me to shift your attention to the United States. US President Donald Trump moved to substantially raise tariffs on steel and aluminium imports yesterday, cancelling exemptions and duty-free quotas for major supplies in Canada, Mexico, Brazil and other countries, in a move that could boost the risk of a multi-front trade war. Trump signed proclamations that raised the tariff rate on aluminium imports to 25% from the previous 10% that he imposed in 2018 to aid the struggling sector. His action reinstates a 25% tariff on millions of tons of steel imports and aluminium imports that had been entering the US duty-free under quota deals, exemptions and thousands of product exclusions. The proclamations were extensions of Trump's 2018 Section 232 national security tariffs to protect steel and aluminium makers. A White House official said the exemptions had eroded the effectiveness of these measures. Trump will also impose a new North American standard requiring steel imports to be melted and poured and aluminium be smelted and cast in the region to curb imports of minimally processed Chinese steel into the US. The order also targets downstream steel imports that used imported steel for tariffs. Trump's trade advisor Peter Navarro said the measures would help US steel and aluminium producers to shore up America's economic and national security. Well, that's a wrap of this morning's edition of the Breakfast Rundown on TV1. I'm Therunee Karunaratne. I'll see you once again on Thursday, that is the 13th of February 2025, with more of the very latest from here at home and around the world. Until then, take care. Have a wonderful day ahead.